Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the Digital Innovation Festival and our Monday evening talk about digital business and doing it right in 2020. We're running this with the support of the Victorian Government. And with me tonight, I've got Jason Westrup from BGR Development, and who is a local IT professional up here in the Swan Hill region, who will be joining me to talk you through some slides. And we're still admitting more people into the webinar. There we go. And everyone wants to join now. So we've actually got about 50 odd people who have responded to tonight, and 22 in so far. So if I have to stop and pause, you'll know why. Jason, just to confirm that's gone onto the format slide?
Yep.
Great. Excellent. So we can zoom on. So my name's Paul Dillon. I'm from Mallee Rising, and you've got here in the black cap, we've got Jason, who is my IT wingman for tonight. And we're really excited to share with you this topic around digital business, because we've seen such a huge transformation in society over the last few months. Creates a lot of opportunities for businesses as well as complexity and challenges. So we really wanted to combine our talents and our passions to put together a 1 hour webinar tonight. We have really crammed in a lot of content. So our plan for tonight was to really give you a lot of valuable content around what it means to run a digital business in 2020. And we're also running a second event on Thursday night, which is more of a dedicated Q&A session around a lot of the content, because you might want to go away and you may not have a chance to have your question answered tonight. You may even have something pop in your mind later. So we're having a dedicated event at 6 o'clock on Thursday night, and we'll send the link out to everybody. And join us if you've got something you really want to sink your teeth into us after tonight. So the format, as I said, a lot of content to fit in before 7 o'clock, and a lot of tips. We really want people not just to consume a lot of information, but to walk away with some really good tips. Digital business, there is a lot to cover. We probably won't do it justice and cover everything, but we'll give it our best shot. You can only cover so much in 1 hour. Now, the chat, I'm just going to pop a chat link into the Q&A link into the chat, if you give me one moment. It would be handy if I could find the chat. Here we go. So everybody have a go at hopefully you can Kelly, do you mind chucking a question into the chat for me? We just want to double check that but that link you've got now in the chat window, you can throw questions in there and we'll try to answer them for you during the event. So we'll try and answer your questions as we get through, and if we've got some time at the end, we will put some questions there. We are also recording tonight's webinar, and that will be uploaded onto the Digital Innovation Festival website this week. So you can go to diff.vic.gov.au, our partner for the festival, as well as the NBN, who are a great partner this year and last year as well. A couple of words about ourselves. So Jason, the handsome man in the black cap, is going to be giving you all the knowledge around IT tonight, and I'll be giving you some information around the marketing aspects, and we'll try and fuse those together into some great content. So we're living in certainly very challenging and unique times. Now, what we're all seeing now, particularly in Victoria, is with social distancing, it means we're spending more time at home. We're trading the traditional office for our home office. The classroom is now in the kitchen, and physical shops moving online. So we're seeing an incredible transformation. We're also seeing the closure of a lot of bricks and mortar stores, and it means that online has become not just the preferred way to shop, but in many cases it's the only way to do shopping at the moment. We're also seeing things like telehealth, the legal system, education, and many administrative jobs moving online during COVID-19 as well. Here's a few chapters we're going to cover tonight. We're going to, apologies in advance if we are quite quick going through them. It's a non-exhaustive list, but here's the main themes we're going to touch on tonight. Jason's pulled a bit of a quote he quite likes. I've got a quote for you in a few slides. But so as Bill Gates, whether he really said it, Jason, or not, but it's attributed to him as saying, if your business is not on the internet, then your business will be out of business. And we're going to show you a few statistics in a minute coming from some Australia Post research this year around e-commerce. And you'll quickly see that being online is the place to be running your business. So COVID-19 has sped up the move online. In 2019, Australia Post forecast 12% of consumer spending will be conducted online by the end of next year. With the period of time we're going through over the past 6 months, this has rapidly accelerated. And in fact, we reached that milestone of 12% in March this year. And Australia Post now estimates that by the end of this year, 15% of all retail will be done online in Australia. In preparing the slides this week, a couple of things which really stood out to us is that 5.2 million households shopped online during April 2020. It's an incredible figure for anyone who's thinking about getting online or starting a business. But the fact is that it's become such a habit for so many millions of households around the country. It is a pretty compelling reason to be developing an online presence and growing it. When we look at compared to the average in 2019, I mean, that's a significant 31% jump. The other key figure here, which I think is pretty fascinating, is that Australia Post recorded more than 200,000 new shoppers online in April, which is a 35% increase. 35% of those people would made more than one online purchase in April. So not only are more people shopping online, but more people are doing it for the first time this year. Now, prior to the pandemic we find ourselves in, Australia Post estimated that online shopping would double by 2025. We can probably now expect that that will be brought forward by a year or more, and that just growth is just going to continue to compound. So what we're really witnessing here is a real change in buyer behavior. People choosing an online shop ahead of, in many cases, a physical shop and all these kind of things. It's a behavior which many people anticipate will become a permanent behavior. And we feel that this creates huge opportunities for people living and working and starting businesses in regional, rural and remote Australia, because this technology and not only the tools like the NBN and low-cost websites and all these kind of things, not only do they provide opportunities for people in regional areas, but it's closing that gap between the city and country. Now, a quote which I like to pull out when I run some workshops is one which is attributed to Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, which I love to repeat in workshops, because I really feel that his words are quite empowering to anybody who's got a vision for a business in a country town in regional or rural Australia. I think that this change in buyer behavior during 2020 just really reinforces that opportunity for small businesses. All right, Jason, I might throw to you for a couple of words here while I take a sip of water. You want to walk us through the importance of a website in 2020?
Yep, thanks, Paul. So the websites are critical and central to the digital presence these days. There's a stat on one of the other slides about Google searches. They hit over 80 billion searches in July this year, just in that 1 month. So that's effectively every single living person on the planet searching 10 times, which of course we know not every one of them has the internet. Web searches, websites are the primary way for people to interact with businesses these days. Behind your website is the platform it's running on, and that's what this slide's all about. So key things there is, does your website have an SSL certificate? What that is you'll see up in the browser address bar at the moment, the little padlock to the left of the meet.google.com address. That little padlock means it has SSL. 2 years ago, Google made a change to their search algorithm, making that a requirement, no longer an optional thing. By later this year, it includes the images that are on your website. If they're not sitting somewhere that has a certificate, then it will just not load those parts of the website anymore without warning. So they pushed that, and Microsoft and Apple, as the other big browser makers, and Mozilla, they all jumped on board with it. So all browsers require this SSL, and will over the next couple of years get to a point of just not loading websites that don't have it. Is the platform that your website's on regularly maintained? That means security patches, software upgrades, that kind of thing. If you're using one of the website builder platforms like Squarespace, Weebly, Wix, etc., that's not a concern for you because they take care of all that behind the scenes. If you're on something like WooCommerce or one of the WordPress-based sites, that is a concern for you. So you need to make sure that whoever's looking after it for you, that they're regularly doing this. WordPress periodically has really big breaches go on. And the only way to keep your website safe is to make sure that they're constantly patched and updated. Is there monitoring for security breaches? So if the website is hacked, will you know? And how quickly will you know? And is it hosted in multiple locations? So the website builder platforms typically will host your website in 2 or more different geographical locations, so that even if one part of a country, say the eastern seaboard of the US, goes dark, your website would still run out of the western half. Or if it's here in Australia, typically that's Melbourne and Sydney. These are important because if your website's down, it doesn't make a particularly good impression to potential customers. So as we've said there, if the answer to any of those questions is no, it's time to change platforms or hosting provider to one that will answer yes to all of those questions. The final couple of points. So perform SEO or search engine optimization on your website. There's a number of tips and tricks on doing that you can find, or talk to a local provider such as Paul at Mallee Rising around SEO. It's what Google uses to build up the indexes for when people search. So the better that it is on your website, the higher up in Google searches you'll appear. The other one is Google Analytics and Google Search Console, which are both free tools. They help you understand the visitors that are coming to your website. So how many of them, where are they coming from? In the case of the Google Search Console, what search terms are they using when they find you? And you can build up a really good image of how your website's being used, and from that, get an idea of changes you should make to your website. The other thing we just wanted to touch on at this point was just that with the democratization of the internet, things like websites and email marketing and video content creation, they've all gotten a lot cheaper over the last 5 years. So things that 10 years ago only a big corporate could afford to do, the smallest of small businesses can afford to do the very same things these days. And that's really opened it up for small businesses across Australia to be able to compete at a global level if they want to go global.
Yeah, and there's a lot to take in there, Jason, around websites. I mean, we're probably not doing a lot of justice because we could probably put 2 or 3 slides together on websites, but those first 4 bullet points are really important. Technical considerations taken into place. That's why we'll be talking in a moment and through the web presentation around fully managed website hosting, where a lot of these things are in the cloud and a lot of these considerations are taken out of your hands and done by professional teams. So, but there are some technical considerations you need to be aware of, but as well as those last 2 points around that, more things you can do to be found in Google and to understand visitors to your website a bit better. So some tips we want people to go with is, as Jason said, make sure your website has an SSL certificate. You will be, if you're not already being penalized in your Google rankings, you will be. And as Jason says, it's going to get worse and worse if you want to get found in Google and you don't have a certificate. Do the SEO and make your business more findable on Google. Another tactic there, I mean, things like doing blogs and just even content freshness and keeping your website up to date from time to time, it all helps with your Google ranking. Review your content, but also be aware of what it looks like on a mobile device. Pretty easy to design something on a computer or laptop and not be quite sure, because mobile visitors to websites is growing every year. So be aware of what it looks like that way. We mentioned the Google Analytics to understand what people are doing on your website and where they came from, as well as what we feel the fully monitored and managed hosting. Because such a high percentage of businesses in Australia are small businesses, we feel that the fully managed providers like Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, they provide businesses with a very professional website at a very minimal cost. I mean, you're looking at what, $20 to $50 a month for a website, and you don't even need to have your own IT department. All the IT, the security, all these things and the designs are all taken out of your hands. And as a small business, you can just focus on the words and the images and telling your story. There's a few examples there of some e-commerce websites, as well as another tool which Jason uses, and even Telstra uses it, called Duda. Domain names. So I'm not going to read out everything we've got on here, but your domain name is really a platform for your business online. You can't have a website without one. And so basically, top level domains are at the top of the domain name system, and they are administered by ICANN. Now, there's 2 types of domains. There is the generic ones, so we all know about the .com, the .net and .info and so on. There's also the country code TLDs, which is .com.au for Australia and .co.nz for New Zealand. This, almost a decade ago, this was opened up by ICANN, and now we have something like more than 1,000 top-level domains in 2020. We're looking at things like .charity, .farm, .shop, .cafe, .legal, .plumbing, .golf and .beer. And remind me, Jason, I've got to register my .beer after the webinar. But there are, hundreds, thousands of top-level domains. So as a business and as a brand, there's an opportunity there for you to move into new online spaces. But there's also the risk that accompanies that, because if you've got a great idea for a business, well, then you need to be looking at other things. If you're I notice there's some people here who are in the wellness space. So then you've got to be looking at .health. You want to look at the .com.au for your business in Australia, but you might want to be looking at the .health as well. So opportunities and risks with all that opening up of the domain name system. Now, just explaining a bit of the lexicon around domain names, because it's really important for businesses to get a better handle. I think domain names is something that people can sort of set and forget. You get a domain name for your business, you've probably got a confirmation email sitting around somewhere in your inbox from years ago. But if you lose control of your domain name, that's when the panic sets in. So it's really worth taking a moment to touch on that. So the registry is the authority responsible for a domain name extension in Australia. That is ALDA, and they look after all the .au domain names. Now, if you're registering a domain name, you'll be going through a registrar who sells domain names, or people like Jason and myself who are resellers of domain names. So there's a distinction between registrars and resellers. The registry, who sits at the very top, is also responsible for facilitating dispute resolution and other types of safeguards. When you register a domain name, you become a registrant. Now, in Australia, a registrant for .com.au needs to be a registered Australian company, trading under a registered business name, a partnership, or a sole trader, or an incorporated association. Now, the other thing we need to be thinking of here is also that when you register a domain name, you don't own it. It's only a license, and you have it for a specified period of time under specified conditions. So when we register .com.au domain names, it's for a period of 2 years. So the reason why we touched on the sort of glossary of terms there is that when we're looking at best practices to protect your domain name, we're talking about protecting your website, but also protecting your email. Because if you lose control of your domain name, you lose your email and you lose your website. And all of a sudden you're calling somebody in a mad panic because your business cannot run because you've let some things slip. So a few quick tips. Make sure you know who you've actually registered your domain names for your business through, and if possible, have a direct login for that portal. Make sure that you are listed as a registrant for your domain name. Now, a bit of a funny anecdote, but in preparing tonight's slides, I realized that my domain name for mallyrising.com.au is still in my previous company name. Now, if I go to close down that business at some point, I could lose control of my domain name, or more likely have to go through a lot of red tape to get that domain name back. So make sure you keep your legal structure up to date in your domain name record. Now, your email address is listed as the registrant. It should be listed as the registrant contact email. So even if you use an IT guy or your neighbor or your nephew or your web designer to do your website and your web domain name, make sure your email address is the registrant, because in 2 or 3 years' time, something goes wrong with your domain name. That you need to have ownership of that. It's important to note that all renewals, changes are verified through this email address. So there's no point having those notifications going to somebody who you no longer do business with. Where possible, use a generic email address. So rather than using an employee's name, first name, last name at your company, if that person moves on, then those notifications are going to a mailbox which is no longer monitored. So try not to use an employee's mailbox. In your domain name portal, make sure your domain names are set to automatically renew. Don't take this as a given, but make sure you go in there and check that your strategically important ones are set to that setting. Also, make sure your domains are locked in the portal. Don't assume that they are locked, because this will prohibit unauthorized transfer and updates to your domain. Now, if you want to go tonight, I recommend in about 45 minutes time, hopefully a few of you will be jumping over to alda.org.au to do a whois search look up on your domain name, and go and have a look and see how many of those 5 points above have not been complied with. And I recommend and I'm going to have to go do it for Mallee Rising as well after we finish here. Jason, I'll throw it to you. I realise that we're probably talking a bit too much, and so we might try and pick up the pace.
There's a couple of questions popped up in the chat there as well.
And thank you guys. Yep. Because the Google Chat Q&A is not working. Thanks, Kelly. So throw your questions into the Q&A into the chat window.
Yep. All right. Yep.
Mathlini probably can't comment on the Ecwid, if that's the correct pronunciation. I'm aware of that as a great tool for having a Facebook shop and all these kind of commerce. I haven't tested it, so I can't really comment on. And please tell me, jump in if the pronunciation is wrong. And Alana, yes, you can renew after 2 years your domain name, and you can. And if you set that to auto renew, it'll happen automatically. As long as make sure your credit card details. That's another tip for the best practice slide. Make sure your credit card details are up to date in the portal. So Jason, over the DNS.
Yes. Yeah, and with how do you pronounce it? Ecwid. I haven't really dealt with it either, but
I wanted to have a go at it, but I haven't.
Yeah. Well, if it answered yes to the questions that we highlighted, then it should, in theory, be all right. Because they're there as a guideline for you. For that. Yes. DNS. So this is the internet's phone book. So when you click the link to go to meet.google.com, your computer looked up a DNS entry for that domain to find out what address to actually go to, which is a sequence of numbers that sits behind it. Every time you send an email, the domain that you enter after the @ symbol, your email system does a DNS lookup to find out the address of the email server where to send email to that domain. Basically, everything on the internet relies on DNS. Without it, as North America and the UK found out a few hours ago, when it breaks, it takes the whole internet down with it, or particular parts of the internet. They had another major outage just a few hours ago, actually, caused by an issue with the DNS lookup. So best practices with it. We recommend specifically for these seeking the assistance from either a knowledgeable local IT provider or from your domain name registrar or reseller if you've gone through a reseller, because these are technical items and can break things if not done quite right. The first is to enable something called DNSSEC, which means DNS security. It prevents your DNS records from being hijacked. So what that means is no matter how much security you've put against your actual domain name, your domain portal, and all of those things, it's still possible to hijack the DNS records for your domain. So that means being able to redirect traffic for, malleerising.com.au or bgrdevelopment.com.au. Instead of going to our websites, they can be told to go to another website, which is malicious and designed to infect your computer or steal information. DNS helps prevent that from happening. If your domain registrar doesn't support DNSSEC, move to one that does. It's really that straightforward in 2020 because this is becoming a bigger issue overseas, and as tends to happen in security issues, it doesn't take long for it to start happening more and more in Australia. Choose a DNS host. So this is where the DNS actually sits, with a high service level agreement for uptime. So keeping in mind, every time a customer types in your website address and hits enter, if your DNS host isn't responding at that point in time, they will not get to your website. The same as if when they go to send an email to you, the email will not flow. Like, it's very, very critical, DNS. So that's why you need one with a high uptime. Most providers will offer around the 99.9%, which means they're allowed to be down for about 45 minutes every month without breaking the agreement. Some, however, do offer and guarantee 100% uptime, meaning huge chunks of the planet would be have to be not around anymore for them to not respond and not work. So yeah, I would be looking into that as well, which is something your IT provider can help with.
I thought I'd throw that question. I thought I'd throw your picture in there, Jason. Maybe we could ask people to have a think about what they think this room here could be. And it's a bit of a segue into our next section around email. Because we want to talk to you about the importance of having business grade email, because not all email is created equal. So Jason, I'll throw it over to you to tell us why.
Yep. So that photo was actually from one of a number of cyber defense operations centers that Microsoft runs around the world. So that is an actual real-time map that's up on the top right-hand corner, and a real-time globe portraying what their systems are seeing going on in terms of email hacking and the like around the world. So email, it's the #1 attack vector, meaning method for attacking for hackers. It has been that way for a while and still is. The primary way that people get hacked is through email. Business grade email is dominated by Microsoft and Google. I did a lookup on Statistica, which is a US company that publishes monthly a whole range of different statistics around information technology. This was from June this year. Combined, it's approximately 99% of all business email in the world runs on either Microsoft's or Google's platforms. So everyone else is a small player compared to those two. And that means the resources that these guys throw at there, keeping your email secure, is that much more. Business grade email also comes with additional protection that consumer emails such as @gmail.com or @outlook.com doesn't get. Both Google and Microsoft have fleets of AI, artificial intelligence solutions, protecting the business customers that the consumer grade versions don't have. And that's because an AI can react a lot quicker than a human can to changing threats that are happening. And yes, every time you mark something as a spam, one of those AIs does notice. And it uses it in two ways, which is firstly, if enough people on the platform also mark that same thing as spam, the AI starts treating as a spam for everyone. The other thing is that for you, if particular types of emails you're constantly marking as spam, the AI will adjust its rules to block future emails like that for you as spam. So they do learn and they do watch. They deal with billions of emails a day, which is the other reason why they use these automated artificial intelligence systems. And business grade email looks more professional, which increases trust with your customers and suppliers. So that is the final thing.
I'd like to have that big team of Microsoft people behind me, or Google people, ensure my email is safe. So run us quickly through some best practices.
Yep. So 3 best practices. Firstly is to use business grade email from either Microsoft or Google for your business email. The second is to enable 2FA, which is two-factor authentication, for your email login. We touch on 2FA later on in this session. And use either Outlook or Gmail apps only for your business email. Email clients have become something that have been targeted for breaching as well. So it's more than just the email service, but it's how you access the email, which has an impact on how safe and secure it is.
Jason, we got a question come in about Mac.com. If you purchase your email from Mac.com, can we consider that as business grade?
Mac.com. I would have to look that up and let you know.
There's always 1% of the population who still uses Macs.
Yeah.
So here we are. We're catering for the 99% of people who are generally using Windows. But thank you, Mathlini, for the question. I'm afraid we're not Mac people, so probably can't.
We'll take that one offline and have a look and get back to you.
Yes.
Yep. So even if you're on Gmail, you still can use the Outlook client. They have a plugin for it. So you can use Outlook with Outlook, and you can use Outlook or Gmail with Gmail, the business grade Gmail.
Yeah. Jason, in the interest of time, we might try and just really zip to
we'll
the best
scoot through these couple.
Here is again, these are some best practices here, which Jason can talk to you better than I can. But these are some more things you can talk to your IT provider about. But so we might just jump over that one.
Oh, I was just going to quickly scoot through it.
Yep.
So I'll just use the acronyms. We've explained them out fully on the slide there, but SPF and DKIM is how when you send an email, when your business grade email sends an email to another place, it can prove that, yes, it is actually you sending it and not someone pretending to be you. And DMARC uses those two records to allow you to determine what should happen when someone has tried to claim they're you, but they're obviously not. So it's kind of like carrying a driver's license for your email, if you like, that proves your email is your email. More and more providers around the world are relying on it, so it's a good thing to have configured. And it is something, as Paul said, best to talk to your IT person about getting set up on your email for you. Cool.
Yeah, I'll let you continue. You're on a roll, Jason.
Yep. File storage. So your business data is a primary target for hackers these days. You've probably seen in the news this year alone, Toll has been taken out twice. There's been a couple of other big famous companies also taken out with ransomware. What ransomware does is locks up your data, and if you don't pay the money or have good backups in place, then that data's gone. The reason why it's possible for them to do that is local storage. So this is where you've got files kept on your business premises, on something other than your laptop itself. It requires constant updates to be kept secure. And so if it's not being done monthly, then it's probably not secure at the moment. Also, local storage requires a full backup solution, including on-site and off-site copies, in order to be properly protected. A good alternative these days, which this is one of these things that 10 years ago only big corporates could afford, but now the pricing has come down a lot so that small businesses can afford them, is something called a NAS, a network attached storage. It's basically a bunch of hard drives in a little case that plugs into your business network and lets you access it from your computer. They come with a whole bunch of protection built into them out of the box for you. With the rollout of NBN, though, over the last few years, it's dramatically increased the viability of using cloud-hosted solutions for file storage. Before the NBN, it wasn't really viable in the regions, but now it is. So cloud storage is better protected from hackers. That same cyber defense operations center that was in the photo also looks after the cloud storage for Microsoft, and Google has an equivalent one looking after the Google Drive for Business storage. So it's better protected from hackers in that sense. It's also better protected against data loss and what that means is they generally keep 2 to 3 copies of your data spread across one or more locations. So it's really, really hard for enough things to go wrong for your data to be lost. And the final thing is just touching on some of the options there, which is Google Drive for Business, which is part of G Suite for Business from Google, Microsoft OneDrive for Business, and SharePoint Online, which is part of Microsoft 365, which is what they used to call Office 365. And Dropbox for Business. Dropbox has been around for, what would it be, Paul, going on at least a decade or more. Yeah, and they've built up a good reputation for themselves as well. So there's some options there for it. In terms of best practices, so the first one is to move to cloud storage, such as Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, and SharePoint Online.
With a little asterisk.
A little asterisk on that one in the next point, which I'll touch on shortly. The second one is to back up your computers to cloud storage. So if you're using Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive, they both have little tools you can install on your local computer. So be it your laptop or desktop or that. And it will back up the key data off it into the cloud as well, making it that much harder to lose the data or for hackers to make off with it. The little asterisk is, so some industries have data sovereignty, which means requirements around Australian data has to be hosted in Australia, for example, or specific privacy regulations which prohibit using cloud storage. The health and finance industries in particular have specific regulations they have to work around if they want to use cloud storage. And if you still have poor quality or otherwise limited internet access, then obviously cloud storage is still not going to be ideal for you. And that goes on to the third point, which is use a NAS for local storage when needed, ensuring it is maintained, which for modern NAS units from, say, a company like Synology, maintaining them just means ticking the box that says update yourself automatically, and it takes care of itself. If you do happen to have local file servers running and on any other version of Windows Server than 2019, you need to upgrade now. Either upgrade it to Server 2019, replace it with a NAS unit, or shift to the cloud. That's something your local IT provider can help with. And also, if they're maintaining it for you, now's a good time to ask them why they haven't upgraded you already when they should have for file storage. File storage, by the way, was how Toll got taken out twice.
Okay.
So even the big companies can get it wrong occasionally.
So might fly through the business listings one. So basically, things like Google My Business, Facebook, and even all these different directories you see around the internet, like Yelp and TrueLocal and these kind of ones. You know, all these great opportunities for you to have your link to your website, your phone number, your products and services, all these kind of things listed. Particularly Google My Business is a really, really effective one. But it's really important for you to keep these up to date, but also to audit them from time to time. My understanding is a lot of directories actually just harvest or scrape your business listings as well from other sources. So you could even, your business could even have a listing somewhere which you didn't even create, and it could be showing an old email address or an old phone number from a previous owner of your business and all these kind of things. So really, we recommend a digital business in 2020 should be really on top and have processes in place to check their business listings quite regularly. So with Google having such a dominant market share in search, it makes sense that your Google My Business listing, which is free, it's a great box of information which is very visible both on the mobile search and on a desktop. It's just a no-brainer to have a Google My Business profile. Facebook, with so many businesses and so many users around the world, you can have a free business profile. Just make sure you keep it up to date. I know a lot of businesses who still don't have the a story or the about section complete for their page. So go back and have a process to, you know, once or twice a year, go back in and check that and update it. And as I mentioned, go around and and reviews. I think as small business owners, it's very tempting. We don't like asking customers for reviews, but we have to get over that, and we have to start, because it's so important when customers are doing research for a product or a service, they're going to really rely on reviews, not what you're saying about your business, but about what other people are saying. So it's very important. It should be so easy to get up to 20, 30, 50, 100 reviews. There's probably no reason today why you couldn't have 100 reviews on Google My Business and Facebook. It's just about creating a process and asking your customers, and it could be a huge, have a huge effect, particularly on Google results pages when it actually shows your star ratings in the Google results. So a couple, sort of touched on the best practices. Make sure you've got a Google My Business listing and make sure you keep it up to date. Keep updating your listings with photos and content. I mean, Google keeps adding extra layers of value to Google My Business. So go in there, create your profile, but just see all the wealth of opportunities you can do in that profile. Jason was telling me a bit earlier that you could even use your Google My Business listing as a place to even tell people about sort of specials, campaigns you're running as well. And I might just think the rest of you can probably jump on the rest of that one. So security, Jason, tell us a bit about how to secure ourselves.
Yep. So 2FA/MFA, which is two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. It's the same thing, just some sites will refer to it using 2FA and some sites refer to it as MFA, just because IT likes to be confusing wherever possible. It provides an additional layer of protection for your logins. Things like if you've ever had to use the SMS code for your internet banking or accounting software, that was 2FA in action. What it means is even if someone has your username and password, they still can't log in as you without the code that comes from that 2FA. And the second thing is password managers. So password managers let you use stronger passwords. It removes the need to remember the passwords entirely. You only need to remember that one password to get into the password manager. It provides a way to securely store other information such as your Wi-Fi network logins or other key details you might want to have with you. Generally, they'll have a web browser plugin and an app for a mobile phone so that it can be with you at all times. And yeah, the password managers replace your notepad or diary or post-it notes or scraps of paper or wherever you're currently keeping the passwords that aren't really that secure.
Post-it note stuck to your screen, Jason, on your monitor with all your passwords.
I've just come across them taped onto keyboards and all sorts of things.
Yes. So let's move away from that, and feel free, guys. Just noting that we've got we're probably going to slightly overrun by 10 minutes on the thing. So it's 7 o'clock. If you need to leave us, please do join us on Thursday if you want to come back into our dedicated Q&A. Jason and I will keep moving forward with a few more slides, but feel free to throw your questions into the chat window. Feel free to tell us what password manager you use. That's a bit of a best practice I need to jump on. I did try LastPass a couple of years ago, Jason. I found it a touch confusing. I'm one of those kind of people, if I can't get it working in 30 seconds, I abandon it. So please do tell us in the chat what tools you're using, and maybe I'll make that a resolution to start on that tomorrow. Best practices.
Yep. So best practices is enable 2FA wherever possible to do so, and use an authenticator app over SMS, because believe it or not, that using SMS has become another way for people to get attacked, particularly in the US. It even owned its own name of SIM jacking. In order to stop it, here is why it's gotten so much harder to move a mobile service or get a new mobile service these days than in the past. The examples that I've put there as authenticator apps, the big three probably, Google Authenticator and Microsoft Authenticator, which you'll often see referred to, particularly on finance packages and the like. The other one is Authy, which is also widespread and runs across many devices. There's a lot of other smaller ones, including your web browser has the option, Apple KeyPass, etc. Most of those have been hacked in the last few years, which is why they're not on the list here for things we recommend. Use a password manager. Yeah, so this is under the password manager bit. Sorry, more importantly. Use a password manager to manage your logins and secure notes. Some examples are Bitwarden, 1Password, Dashlane, LastPass, and TrueKey, all examples of password managers. Yeah, things like your web, as I said, things like your web browser and Keychain on Apple aren't on there because, yeah.
Okay, a couple comments in the chat there. Jason, Kelly is telling us to maybe get lazy and let Apple Passwords Manager or Google Passwords Manager remember your password. Probably not super. Probably a good idea a few years ago, but that's probably been, probably not considered a good practice anymore.
Yep. Okta. Yeah, Okta also gets used a lot for account authentication itself. So it does do a mixed bag of things. But yeah, Okta is another one that another company out there that's doing it. What about antivirus password managers? So if you're using McAfee, for example, TrueKey is the password manager that they include with it, because like themselves, they're owned by Intel. The others have usually done a deal with one of the big companies, typically. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Very good. We might move on to productivity tools. I reckon I could probably fire through a couple of these ones. And thank you for the question in there that at 6 o'clock on Thursday, we're doing our dedicated 1 hour of Q&A. So productivity tools, many of us are using them now on our phones and on our computers. So note-taking apps to remember all this knowledge we're consuming these days, managing your tasks, your workflow processes, and all these kind of things. So, Jason, you want to tell us, tell us a little bit about the examples you've implemented.
Yep. So, task management, everyone would know, assign yourself a list of things that you've got to get done. Workflow management is around repetitive processes that you go through and just managing those, and the same, similar to process management. So a couple of examples that I've actually implemented for small businesses up here. One of them was at a packing warehouse, which, using a tool, it managed so when the requests came in, a card went up onto the workflow tool, and they could move it through in the warehouse itself. And so both the people in the warehouse and at the front desk who was taking the orders knew exactly where and what the orders were at all times, and it greatly sped things up for them. So it increased their productivity quite a lot.
And that was quite and that's a simple drag and drop.
Yep. Yep. And the business owner has it as an app on their phone, so the business owner can quite quickly see where everything's at any point in time, which they greatly appreciated, having that oversight. And the other one was at a car service center. So the problem there was when people dropped off the cars, the people at the back servicing them didn't know the car was there unless the front office told them. And conversely, when it was being serviced and put back out the front ready for pickup by customers, the front office didn't know that unless the service center told them. So using one of these tools, everybody knows where the cars are and at what stage they're in at all times, which has greatly improved things for them and the responsiveness for them. So these tools can help you do more in shorter time or less time.
Fantastic.
So best practices: settle on a note-taking application and start using it. Some examples there: Microsoft OneNote, which comes as part of Office; Evernote, which has been around, must be going on 15 years.
I use that every day. I've used it every day for the last 10 years. And also it's got a Chrome browser integration as well. So even now when I read an article or a website which I haven't got time to finish reading, I just click on the icon in Chrome and I just save that article in Evernote, which is searchable as well, fantastically searchable.
And Google Keep, which comes as part of Google G Suite. That's examples there. And on the other side of it, evaluate what processes or tasks you could be better managing using an application. Basically, anything that you have that's repetitive and possibly volume-based will improve using one of the tools. And the same goes for just having a centralized task list. Some examples there: Asana and ClickUp are two tools that do it all. Microsoft Planner and Microsoft To Do, which are part of Office 365, you kind of have to use them together if you want them to do more of this. Google Tasks is good at a to-do list, basically, but not so much the other things.
And that integrates also into Gmail, which is quite handy. Yep.
Yeah, because you can turn emails into tasks with one click. Yep.
All right. So digital marketing, something we could easily spend a dedicated webinar or two on this. So we've really deliberately kept this quite short. Many people in this call will be dabbling in digital marketing themselves. So we're talking about things like advertising through Google, advertising through social media, your Facebook and your Instagram. Again, with Facebook owning Instagram, you can run one campaign through your Facebook ad manager and have those ads running across two different, across Facebook and Instagram. Email marketing, I just think it's one of the best kept secrets in small business. I really feel that people should be keeping a clipboard on the front counter and asking customers if they'd like to receive offers by email occasionally, and graphic design. So looking through a couple of the comments we've got here, Google, with such a so entrenched in the way people search for businesses online, it offers its well-known ad platform now called Google Ads rather than Google AdWords. Facebook and Instagram have their highly targeted ads you can do at quite a good price point. MailChimp, we've got Campaign Monitor. Jason's thrown in Twilio as an example. There are lots of other email marketing platforms out there, probably too many to mention. But again, start doing it. If you're already getting a bit comfortable with social media, have a stab at email marketing. And Canva, a great Australian company. You can, very easy to learn. We've run workshops in the past, 3-hour workshops where people can come in and within 3 hours they walk out with the confidence to be able to start creating graphics and animations and videos. We'd love to be able to see how we could maybe take those workshops and take them online and teach people, no matter where they are, how to use these kind of tools. So really condensing digital marketing down into only a couple of slides, but it's really, to use advertising across Google, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if you're if that's your if that works for your industry, such as agriculture. Build up a database and use email from time to time. And importantly, we're giving such a small amount of time to this one, but your business, you should become a storyteller. Use things like video. We've all got these powerful computers in our pocket called a smartphone, which can create high definition videos. So, tell your story through video. It's a very powerful digital marketing tool. Jason.
Cool. We're down to only a couple of slides left to go, so we're almost there as well, just so everyone knows. Hardware. So your digital business runs through the hardware that you use, be it smartphones or laptops or other computers. All of that should be under lifecycle management, like other key business equipment may be. Farmers, for example, have a lifecycle plan for their harvesters, manufacturing places for their main manufacturing machines, etc. So what the plan does is it lays out a schedule of what and when equipment should be replaced. Some general guidelines: laptops and desktops should be replaced every 3 to 5 years. Monitors and printers should be replaced about every 5 years. Smartphones and tablets about every 2 to 3 years. Network equipment that you use in your business should be replaced about every 5 years, but it's not uncommon for it to run outwards of 10 years, particularly if you're not using the equipment the telco gave you. Following a lifecycle plan, it reduces your business risk from things suddenly up and dying on you at a critical time. It improves business productivity because you're keeping fresh, the equipment runs better, and therefore you can get more work done. And it provides better management of your costs because, again, if things aren't just up and dying out of the blue, instead you're rolling things over on a schedule, then you can plan ahead for when those costs are coming, and less shockwaves.
Yeah, I might also add to that the fact that we're now doing a lot more. We're now doing so many more things on our computers. We're online meetings. We're using webcams, microphones, editing videos, editing podcasts. All these things require more processing power, which is probably a good reason why, and a reason why I'm not running some of my tools tonight, because my old desktop computer probably would have ground to a halt if I had have tried to run an event with all of my toys. So probably a good reason to update your hardware from every few years.
So best practices there is to have a life cycle plan and then stick to the plan. Leverage warranties wherever possible. Things do still occasionally die unexpectedly, and a warranty means you won't have to pay for it unless you've broken it. But then there are also accidental damage warranties as well that will even cover the cost of that. Speak with a tax professional about depreciation, aka tax write-offs, to maximize returns on equipment costs. All computers, smartphones, and tablets should be running endpoint protection as well, which is a combination of antivirus, firewall, and more. We went over that more in depth in the cybersecurity briefing last week. Some examples there are McAfee endpoint protection for small business. Symantec will have a business grade offering, small business version. ESET and Kaspersky have small business versions as well. Yeah. Yep.
Very good. Last couple of slides. Video conferencing. So this is we've got a bit of a bone of contention here between Jason and myself. I'm a massive. I'm guessing can't see everybody's heads here, but I'm guessing a fair few people here have been using Zoom almost daily. Jason is massively on the Google Meet bandwagon because he looks at it through a security and safety lens. I look at it through how easy something is to use and the functionality. But so Jason, just tell us in a couple of words what considerations people should be looking at when they're doing, particularly when they're hosting, because there's a difference between the hosting and running the meeting versus somebody who's just passively attending.
Yep. So Google Meet and Microsoft Teams, they're free, built into Google G Suite for Business and Microsoft 365. They come with the same sort of security protections on them that the email and the cloud storage do from those companies. So, big teams of people constantly monitoring and robots behind the scenes and that. Cisco WebEx is also from one of the two largest video conference suppliers for big companies. So, Fortune 500 companies. So they are up on their security as well. Both Zoom and WebEx have free and paid tiers. So the guy that started Zoom actually came from WebEx initially. So that's why those two are constantly at each other. Google Duo and Microsoft Skype are additional options for one-to-one video calls, and both can be used for free. They are consumer grade, not business grade. But given COVID, Microsoft and Google have made sure that they've got all the security protections needed inside of them. And the final thing is just that if you are doing a lot of video conferences, say like Paul is compared to myself that just does the occasional one here and there are a range of accessories which will greatly improve the experience and the setup, including background screen, actual background screens, microphones, webcams, lighting. There's a range of accessories you can look at to really bring that experience up another level. So best practices. So leverage Google Meet or Microsoft Teams if you're using G Suite for Business or Microsoft 365. They're highly secured and free to use after all. Cisco WebEx is okay on both free and paid tiers. This one, again, as a meeting host in particular, if privacy and or security is a concern, only use the paid tiers of Zoom, because it's only on the paid tiers that some of their security stuff really starts to kick in for you that you don't get on the free tier. And that includes when they were found to have been sending all the data via servers that were in China. Which obviously displeased a lot of people when that happened. But you don't have that problem on a paid tier. And invest in hardware such as an external webcam, external microphone, key lighting, a green screen to look and sound better during the online meetings.
So you may even notice, I've got an HD external webcam here, so hopefully I might be coming through a bit crisper than Jason, who might be in a darker room and a different kind of webcam.
Also, just using the one in the laptop.
Yeah, and just even an external microphone. I think the one I bought, thanks to some support from the DIF team at the big government, I'm now using a USB microphone plugged into my computer, and the sound compared to the kind of tinny, echoey sound which comes from the microphone in your laptop is just incredible. But I'm not yet to hear it because I'm actually the one talking rather than listening. But these things can make a huge improvement, especially if you are delivering and hosting a lot more meetings as well. Kelly's thrown a couple of suggestions in the chat as well. Other platforms, probably more towards the higher end virtual events. So a few things in there for us to have a bit of a look at. Maybe for Diff 2021, Kelly will be playing with a few other tools. I'm thinking for Diff 2021, I'm hoping Zoom lift their game so I can run the meeting in Zoom. Then I'll be able to actually enjoy it more than I am using Google Meet. Anyway, that's
Cvent. I've seen a couple of others use as well. It actually looks like quite a friendly platform, that one. I have previously bookmarked it to go back and dig into it a bit more.
So last slide is basically, we just put up here, you can, when we put the video from tonight up onto the Diff website, so diff.vic.gov.au. We'll put a recording of tonight's webinar also on Mallee Rising social media. I might teach Jason how to use social media, and he might put it on his Facebook page as well. But we'll have a few archive copies of this video up there. But we wanted to show you, so you'll be able to play it back, is some of the tools that we are using day to day. You'll be able to go back and play and look at some of those suggested tools. So the final bit is really, if you, we've had a few questions thrown into the chat, but we've deliberately tried to shoehorn as much value into 1 hour tonight. There's a lot to cover, many things you probably didn't cover, and some things you probably didn't do justice and spend enough time on. So feel free. I haven't been organized enough to set up the event ticketing page yet, but I have popped that link here, and I'll pop it in here now in the chat. Anybody who wants to go and register for, we'll send out the link to everybody by email, but here is the link in the chat for 6 p.m. on Thursday. So you can go away and any other questions you've got or any other tools you'd like to use, join us on Thursday night. And that's in the chat as well. So finally, thank you everybody. Been great turnout. Really encouraging to see so many people hang around and do the full hour and 10 minutes with us. I'd like to thank the Victorian government again for their support in allowing us to run some Diff events, the Digital Innovation Festival events this year and last year, and also to NBN. Graham has joined the call and listening in the background, and NBN for their support as well, because many of these innovations and advances in digital business are made possible because of the network and the backbone that our country now finds itself on, particularly more important now for businesses and communities in regional, rural and remote Australia. So thanks to the Diff team, thanks NBN. Jason, thanks for all of your advice and input in there and building the slides together. Really looking forward to hearing what questions are thrown out there on Thursday night and answering those. And thanks everybody. Jump onto our social media, keep an eye out for the recording on diff.vic.gov.au or on our social media. And we hope to hear from you again. And don't be a stranger. Feel free to send us an email or a message if you've got any questions or anything you liked, or give some feedback. Thanks, guys.